Welcome back to the Wrenches to Adventures YouTube channel. This is episode 4 in the XJ build series. Thank you so much for coming by to check out what I have going on. This is actually going to be the last XJ build series video for quite some time as we prepare to work on the Comanche. I already have parts on the way, so I'm super excited to get started on that. It's going to be an awesome one. In this episode, we're going to continue the list that we started in episode 3, but I do have a confession to make. I already worked on some stuff that was on that list off camera. I had a massive exhaust leak and I had to get it knocked out because there was fumes coming into the cabin. It was a bad thing. So I already knocked that out. So instead of boring you with a recap on what I did to the exhaust, we're just gonna jump right into the fun stuff. But before we do that, please do me a favor. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I would love to hit 50 subscribers by the end of the year. That's a goal I have, and if you could help me out with that, that would be so awesome. Anyways, let's get into the fun stuff. So the common theme over episode 3 and now episode 4 of the XJ build series, it's been all about the cooling system and getting it to perform more efficiently. In episode 3, I installed an all aluminum radiator with the triple electric fans, which if you haven't seen that video, I put a link down in the description. The new radiator setup has been performing amazingly, so to continue the theme of keeping this XJ cool while rock crawling, I'm going to be installing a new auxiliary transmission cooler and some hood louvers. Alright, so here's a little tech tip. If you own a Cherokee with the Ep.4 automatic transmission, then you know that the factory transmission cooler is integrated into the radiator. So that's a bad design in the sense that when the hot transmission fluid goes through that radiator, it oversaturates the coolant with heat and lowers its efficiency in cooling down the engine. So what people do is they install a air cooler for the transmission fluid on the feed line of the transmission. So what that does is it cools down the transmission fluid before it gets into the radiator where the factory transmission cooler is. So that will help that efficiency of that coolant in that radiator to cool the engine quicker instead of just it getting oversaturated with heat from the transmission. So that's what we're gonna do. We'll get this installed. It's a really straightforward install. I'll show you where the feed line is, and then we'll get this knocked out. All right, so when you're under the Jeep and you're looking at the passenger side of your Ep.4 transmission, the feed line for the cooler is going to be the most forward line that's coming out of the transmission, and then the return is the one that's in the very back. All right, so I got the auxiliary transmission cooler all fully installed. Everything turned out really nice. The routing of the transmission lines fits right down between that front support on the frame and the front bumper and the grill here. There isn't much room down through there, so I ended up zip tying everything up pretty nice. I drilled a hole right there so I could get a zip tie in there. That just keeps everything away from the sharp edges of this grill section here in the center. But yeah, it all turned out really nice. under here, you can see here, got everything all zip tied up. Everything's tied into the feed line. But this should work really well, keeping that heat out of the radiator. That way we can keep it from overheating in the summer. But yeah, turned out really nice. All right, so now that I have the auxiliary transmission cooler all knocked out, I'm gonna be moving on to the hood louvers. So I got them placed on the hood here, kind of where I want them. So I still need to open the hood, make sure everything's gonna clear, make sure there's nothing weird that's gonna interfere. But what I'm gonna end up doing is putting painter's tape all over the hood here, get everything marked out, start drilling and cutting holes. So hopefully it all turns out. It's a little nerve-wracking. I've never cut a hood apart here, but you know, we're gonna learn together. So we'll get right into it. All right, so it's the next day. So I didn't realize my phone died while I was filming last night. So where I left off was I was working on getting all the measurements dialed in for the new hood louvers. So first thing, we're gonna double check all those measurements, make sure everything looks symmetrical. Then we'll start drilling and cutting. We'll get to that point of no return. It is kind of nerve-wracking cutting a perfectly good hood, but we're gonna do it. It's all for keeping that engine temperature down. So let's get into it. All right, so this is what I did last night before my phone died. So as you can see here, laid out a bunch of painter's tape, got everything marked. So we're gonna double check the measurements, make sure everything's good. The placement is dependent on the underside of the hood. So right through here, there's a structural support for the hood. So the hole here is actually gonna have an angle that comes through here. But I'm planning on drilling holes in all of the corners, so that way I know where to stop. I'm gonna use a jigsaw to cut this out. And then we're also gonna be using riv nuts for all of the holes. The kit that came with screws and nuts, and I don't wanna have to worry about using two different tools to install the hood vents. So yeah, we're just gonna put riv nuts in there. Let me know down in the comments if you've ever done hood louvers before. One of the hardest parts about doing the hood louvers for me was finding a comfortable position to get up there and drill the holes straight, to measure everything. I resorted to climbing up on my rock slider and my tire, and then there was a lot of up and down throughout the whole process. But let me know what you guys ended up doing or what your garage setups are like. I'm interested in coming up with other ideas to work on lifted vehicles. Well, no turning back now. Got started on that one side. It's a little bit more challenging than I thought it was going to be, but it's going pretty smoothly. So if you've ever cut a hood or installed hood louvers before, you'll know what I'm talking about. So when you're doing this, it's really important to take your time. It's also really important to double check all of your measurements. Make sure everything is as perfect as it can be, because you don't want to have to look at this later down the road knowing that you didn't take all the time in the world to double check your measurements. One last thing I recommend is when you're cutting the hood or drilling the holes, go as slow as possible. I had some issues with drilling holes where the sheet metal was wanting to bite really hard on the drill bit, so that caused the metal to flare and bend. So take your time when you're doing that. That way you can have a smooth, nice level surface when you install those hood louvers. I don't know if you've ever used riv nuts, but man, these things are a lifesaver. I bought this tool probably about a year ago, and I've used it on a bunch of different projects. It's definitely a go-to when you're working with thin sheet metal. It also saves you the hassle of having to use a tool on the inside and a tool on the outside when you're tightening these fasteners. So I'll be sure to put the links down in the description below, so if you're interested in picking up these hood louvers or the Rivet Nut installation tool, they'll be down there for your convenience. Alright, so now that we got the auxiliary transmission cooler installed and the new hood louvers, it's time to get out there and do some testing, which that leads into an upcoming trail ride video that I've been planning with my dad. So me and him have been building a budget rock crawler out of his 2006 Jeep LJ. So it's still a work in progress, but we've been itching to get out there on the trails and do some testing. So we've done some recent suspension modifications and we've added some lockers. So we're going to get out there, do some testing, and see how it performs. So definitely stay tuned for some content on his Jeep and us out there testing on the trails. So this is the end of the video. Thank you so much for tuning in. It really means a lot for me for you to come by and check out what I have going on. So please do me a favor, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I would definitely love to get to 50 subscribers by the end of the year. That would be the best end of the year present that I could hope for. Doing the YouTube thing is definitely new to me, and any support that I can get from you guys, that would be great. So leave me a comment down below. Tell me what you think of the videos. Tell me if you like it, if you don't like it, if there's something that you think I could do to make them better. Anyways, thank you again for tuning in. Get out there in your garage, work on your projects, build something awesome, go out there on the trails, explore. And don't forget to stay safe out there. We'll catch you next time. Thanks.